Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Ayan Arjeen, the CAIR Communications Manager at CAIR National, and today with us we have Faizan Syed, the Executive Director at CAIR-Texas DFW chapter. How are you, Faizan?
Alhamdulillah, I'm doing great. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. How are you doing, Ayan?
Alhamdulillah. Well, we're glad to have you with us today because you guys are having a really important event, and I wanted you on so you could tell us about it. So why don't you go ahead and share with us what's going on today? What is the Muslim Day at the Capitol? Tell us about it.
Well, thank you so much. So today is our biannual Texas Muslim Capital Day. It's an opportunity where Texans from across the state can come and meet and build relations with the state legislature, both their senators and their representatives. Historically, we would go on buses and drive to the Capitol, which is in Austin, Texas, and we would bring adults, community leaders, and students all to the state Capitol building. And there we would hold a rally, have speeches, and then folks would get into delegations and then meet the elected officials one-on-one. However, this year, because of COVID-19, we have to do things like everything a little bit differently. So this is an exciting year because this is our first ever virtual Capitol Day. And because it's virtual, we still have the excitement and the members of the Muslim community who are joining us, but all of our meetings are online and over in using Zoom. Alhamdulillah, today we have nearly 150 people who are part of our Texas Capitol Day from Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, Houston, San Antonio, and even all throughout the state of Texas. And we, alhamdulillah, have been able to schedule 52 meetings with legislative offices, which is very exciting for us. And we're happy to be there right at the beginning of the legislative session in order for us to really make sure our community voice is heard right as the state legislator is meeting for the first time this year.
And you mentioned like this year's a little different. It's online. That can actually be a good thing, right? Because people who may not have been able to go before, now it's a little easier to access. If you have a computer, you're going to be able to go on. It's still going on right now, right? So people can still join if they want to.
That's right. So the Texas Capitol Day today started at 9:30 in the morning, and our last meeting ends, I think, around 4:30 p.m. And you're completely right, Ayan. Even though with COVID things are a little bit different, that we're not physically going to the state capitol, it has opened up for other communities and opportunities. Mean that people who sometimes couldn't take the day off work or sometimes couldn't take the time out of school, now they just have to tell their teachers or their employers that, hey, listen, I just need 15, 20 minutes to go to the site, log into the meeting. They log in, meet their officials, and then they go back to school or to work or wherever it is. So in some ways, it's really opened up those opportunities as well. Another way that's really helped us out is that typically for Capitol Day, you have to do a lot of printed material and you have to do a lot of in-person training, right? So as we're planning for Capitol Day, you have to go to masjids and you have to do trainings at your office, bring the participants in, get them trained in like an hour training, and then they participate. However, because of COVID-19, we were actually able to create the first online training. We created an online comprehensive training that was about 2 or 3 hours long. And that training was unique because we were able to get every topic about Capitol Day, divided into short 2 to 3 minute videos, and then see in real time as our participants did that training. So it's actually in many ways, we're able to get a population of people to participate who have much more insight on what Capitol Day is going to be, and they're much better prepared than if we just went physically in person, I mean.
So I want you to tell us like what the structure of the day is. What the people who are in Capitol Day right now, what are they doing?
That's a really great question. So this year for Capitol Day, because all virtual, what's happening is that throughout the day, folks have meetings with their state senator and their state representative. And these meetings are about 20 to 30 minutes long. Basically, what happens is that whenever your meeting time is, you log on to Zoom. Of course, that's something that all of us are using nowadays. You log on to Zoom, and then you're basically put into a breakout room that has your other members of your delegation, aka the other people in your group. And then the elected official or one of their staff members comes in. They come in, everybody chit chats and talks, and then the meeting is basically over after 20 to 30 minutes. What's unique though is that we're doing also a lobby area. So as people are starting to come in for Capitol Day, folks come early, or if they have any questions, myself and other team members are in this lobby all day. So we're really able to give one-on-one training, one-on-one advice, and help to people as they're coming in for the Capitol Day. Unfortunately, we're not able to do other programs like historically we did press conferences or rallies or speeches. We can't do too much of that just because of the virtual nature of it. But I think when it comes to actually getting people to meet their officials, presenting our legislative agenda, alhamdulillah, it's a really good system and it's working out quite well for us so far. And then also the last thing I'll say is that a lot more elected officials are able to come and be part of these meetings. So typically when you go to the state capitol and meet people, there might be emergency sessions or meetings or something, so the legislator can't often meet with us. But because it's all virtual, the legislator is actually able to sometimes even walk out of the chamber, so walk out of the House chamber, the Senate chambers, take out their phones and actually quickly join in for the meeting. So it's really unique to have these types of meetings today. And our structure is just folks log in, they meet, and then they go back home.
So I'm sharing my screen right now to a list of the bills that you're going to talk to lawmakers about. And I want you to just tell us a little bit about some of them, like what you're hoping to happen from the conversation about these.
Of course. So this year we're supporting 5 different pieces of legislation or 5 different types of bills. And I don't want to get into too much detail for all of them, but let me give you at least an outline. The first one is the George Floyd Act. So all of us in the summer, we saw when an unarmed black man was killed under police custody and it was caught on camera. And this created protests all across the country. The George Floyd Act is being introduced not only in Texas, but it's really being introduced across the country. And it has common sense police reforms. Some of the reforms that it includes is banning the chokehold. So officers still have tasers and they have mace and they have other tools in order to make somebody who's not complying with them become complicit. But the chokehold is dangerous and it can lead to suffocation and death. And we think that should be taken away. Another thing it does is that it gets rid of fine-only arrests, meaning that in the state of Texas, you might get a speeding ticket or other type of fines. And if you don't pay them, then you can actually be arrested and go to jail. For people who are middle class like myself and others, maybe we have the financial means to pay fine. But there are people like single mothers or people who live in abject poverty who really need to go to work. They have to drive a car. They have to, and they sometimes get these fines, but they just don't have a few extra $100 to pay these fines. And if they don't go to court, they can actually end up arrested or thrown in jail. And there's, of course, no way for you to be able to pay your fine if you're arrested and incarcerated. So this would get rid of that. It would say that you still have to pay your fine, but you're not going to go to jail because of those fines. It also does something very important called eliminating qualified immunity. So many government employees actually have qualified immunity, which is just a fancy term that is much harder to sue people who work for the government, including police officers, in civil court. So if a cop, let's say, bursts down my door or damages my property, then there's obviously a criminal investigation, but I still have the bill for my door. I still have the bill for the damages that were done. So what this would do is they would remove qualified immunity from police officers, meaning that I could go and sue them directly. Another type of bill that we're supporting is expanding voting rights in Texas. So we're supporting that once you get your driver's license, you should be automatically registered to vote. Also that we support mail-in ballots. So that way anybody can mail in their ballot rather than having to physically go into their ballot. And also expand the type of IDs that people can use. Meaning that when you go in to vote, you can use your Medicare card, your credit card, debit card, prescription card, and other types of letters as well. Now, something specific for Texas, and many of you are going to be shocked at this. The day after Martin Luther King Jr. Day is Confederate Heroes Day in Texas. So the day after MLK Day is the day that we celebrate the Confederate heroes, even though they're traitors to the country, that they created the Civil War and that they fought for slavery. So this was done in the 1970s on purpose, and we know exactly why it was done. So we're here to say that enough is enough. We need to abolish Confederate Heroes Day and leave the learning of the Confederacy to the courtroom. The last thing I'll mention is that last year, before the pandemic started, CAIR-DFW, we did our first ever bullying survey of Muslim students here in the great city of Dallas-Fort Worth. And we discovered that 48% of Muslim students were bullied in public schools, which is nearly double the national average. 25%, 1 in 4, don't feel respected in school, and 23%, 1 in 4, are victims of cyberbullying. So we're in talking with the legislators to see what can the legislator do to increase funding, to increase support, or to increase training to teachers and schools, so that way we can effectively address the rise of bullying within the state of Texas, especially in public schools. So this is a little bit about what we're doing. Oh, and the last one I forgot to mention is the right to boycott Israel. So as you know, 2017, Texas passed the anti-boycott Israel Act. CAIR, we sued with Sister Bahia Amawi, and that case has gone very far. And this year, we're here to tell the legislators that that was a terrible decision, and get our legislators to say that if a bill like this comes up again, that they will actively stand against it, because it goes against the First Amendment, it goes against our right for political expression, but also it's just a waste of time. Like, why are we doing this type of bill to support a foreign country and to hinder our rights? And alhamdulillah, we've actually gotten a lot of traction with that one as well.
Alhamdulillah, that's a lot of really important work. So I'm glad to hear that you guys are working on that and that Muslims are able to, um, like just regular Muslims, right? Like they're not in like they're not lawmakers, they're not in Congress or anything. They're just everyday regular people going in and being able to talk to their lawmakers about this. I actually did my first like Muslim day at the Capitol while working with CAIR, and I was
Oh wow.
amazed at like the how much like the interaction that you have with these people who they really are affecting your lives, right? Like they're working on legislation that it's going to affect the way that you the laws that you live your life by. So it's like wonderful to see just even all the children that go, right? That people are taking their life into their own hands and they're speaking to their lawmakers. So alhamdulillah, you guys are working on a lot of really great things, and it's really nice to hear that and that CAIR is involved in this.
Let me tell you a funny story with that, if I can, because your story reminded me of a story. The first time I did Capital Day was in Missouri, when I was the director of CAIR in St. Louis. So the very first time we were there the same day that there was a gun rights lobby day as well. So we were there as Muslims, and then there were a bunch of people who were like cowboy hats and they had guns and everything. It's really interesting. But what's fascinating is how the legislature responded. Many people in the legislature were just completely freaked out that Muslims existed in Missouri, right? That was hard for them to get their minds around, and that we were there. And in fact, one of the meetings I remember, I won't say the representative's name, but she basically saw us coming to her office, and she runs in her high heels, goes into her office, and locks the door. So we were like, okay, that's weird. So we go to the door, knock on the door, and nobody answers. And we're like, we just saw you run into this office. And then after like 4 or 5 minutes, they finally opened the door, and the poor legislative assistant who works there is like, oh, this representative, she's no longer here. And we're like, bro, man, there's no way to get out of this office. The front door is the only way out, right? So she basically ghosted us, right? Like she did not want to meet us as a community because it was so new and radical to many of these legislators. And I think oftentimes we forget, and your example is a perfect example. When children come, when everyday Muslims come, this is how we break that ice. This is how we create history.
Normalize it.
That's how we normalize this stuff. And I think, perfect. You're normalizing it. So I'm so happy that you mentioned that.
Yeah, and another thing that I noticed the first time that I did it is how much like I studied a lot of this stuff in school, right? Like and I feel like it's something that I care about. I work at CAIR, like it's something that I felt like I should be pretty knowledgeable about. But I was amazed at like how much I didn't know about the process. When they handed us the book and you have all of the bills that you're gonna be asking about, and just there's a lot of it that's really foreign. So I think that's another thing that's it's important to have people starting it really early on, because then they're aware, like it's not just you have a role in it and you know what's actually going on and what these people are doing to affect your life. So it's definitely something we need to normalize and have more people going out and doing it. And this is something that Texas has done for 10 years, right? So can you tell us a little bit about what the outcome has been, like through the years that you guys have done it? Like what is something tangible that you've seen from, the benefit of doing this?
That's a great question. So Texas Muslim Capital Day started in 2003, believe it or not. So almost 17 years ago. And of course, when I first started, small groups of people going to the state capitol. And what happened is after the election of Donald Trump, when they did it in 2017, there was a counter protest and a counter rally. And there was literally people there with signs and guns and weapons saying that Muslims were not welcome. 2 years later, after that incident happened, when we did Capital Day, there was a few hundred Muslims that attended and almost 2,000 to 3,000 people of other faiths that came to the state capitol and locked arms and made a chain around the Muslim community to make sure that we were welcome and that we were able to go into the Capitol building. And it was, mashallah, really amazing to see democracy in action, to see this support of the support of the community. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. So these are some of the ways that we're impacting the state legislature, not only on the bills that we're promoting and pushing, such as the anti-Sharia bills, the anti-BDS bills, and things like that. But I think one of the biggest takeaways is to empower our community, to get people like yourself and others to know that the Capitol is our house, and figuratively like the people's house. And also, secondly, that it is something that all of us should be doing. It is our duty as American Muslims to build relationships with our officials. And if we don't do that, then other people will and have, and they're not going to represent our community with our best interests. So I think it's a really awesome program. And I'm glad that I have the ability to do, I guess, now the 17th year of it, technically.
Yeah. Yeah, no, what you just said is really important. The idea of having a seat at the table. Like if you're not there telling them what you want to see or telling them the changes that you want, who's going to do it for you? You know, like we have not just for ourselves, right? Like we're advocating for our community and for many other minority communities, overlooked and underrepresented communities. So we need to be out there and we need to have our voices heard. And, you know, so thank you guys for doing this. And when we're done speaking, I'm going to drop the link in the comments. So if you guys want to, like, it's still going to be going on for about another 2 hours, right? Because we have a time.
Yeah, 2:30 here. So 4:30, 2 hours, that's it.
Yeah, so I'm going to put the link. So if you guys want to jump in and check out these meetings, do you have any final thoughts for us?
I'll just end with a few things. Number one is one thing we did a little bit differently at CAIR-Texas is we actually created a dedicated website for Capital Day. So if you go to texasmuslimcapitalday.com, it's a website created by CAIR, and specifically because we want to make sure that we're institutionalizing Capital Day. So now this is one central website. Everybody can go to it every other year to learn about Capital Day, log on, sign up, and all that good stuff. And then when we do our DC Capital Day with USCMO, we're going to use the same link in order to do that as well. So we'll have it in Austin and in DC as well. The last thing I'll mention is I encourage all the participants and listeners right now, if your state is not doing a Capital Day, start a Capital Day. If your state is doing a Capital Day with CAIR or whatever other group, join and be a part of Capital Day. Democracy only works when we work with it. And meeting your elected official, having your children go to the state legislators' offices and seeing the building where laws are passed, having the imams go out of their masjids and being in those areas or giving the opening prayer for the Senate or the House chambers changes the way you will feel. It will make you more patriotic in the good sense, right? Like in the bad sense, in the good sense of feeling that America really is our home, our country, and our voice matters. I encourage everybody who's listening and participating to bring Capital Day to your state, and if it exists, be that person who signs up every year, take the day off of work, take the day off of school, and do your civic duty and participate in Capital Day.
Thank you for that. And I just put it in the comments, so you guys like jump off of here and go and see that, so you can see what it's like. And a lot of places do have their own Capital Day, so like Faizan said, like check it out, and if you guys have one, make sure to be a part of it. It is something that's very liberating. So thank you for joining us today. And if you guys liked this, please give it a like and share it. And if you have any topics you want to see in the future, can like write it in the comments, and we'll make sure to cover that for you guys. Assalamu alaikum.
Welcome, Salam. Thank you so much.